Do you remember that old Wendy's commercial where the three grannies are standing there looking at the burger and one of them says, "Where's the beef?" Well, that's what I think when I look at my stock Dana 44 axle. I'm wondering, where is the beef? Okay guys, so I'm doing this project for two big reasons. So the biggest reason is the ball joints are bad, and these Alloy USA ball joints that I just put in the spring are already bad. And we've had a few really hardcore four-wheeling trips where there's been a lot of weight on the front end on some really tough long trails. So they're worn out already. And so they're not bad, but they're enough to give it death wobble. So I've got to change these. We're going to try a different brand. Also, when my mechanic buddy was jacking up my front axle here, the front end, to put on this relocation bracket here that aligns the track bar with the drag link very nicely. So that's gotten rid of the bump steer. That's done a great job, but he noticed that my axle was bending when he jacked it up. And so, these aren't super strong. This is a Dana 44 on this Rubicon, and we're going to sleeve it, and we're going to put gussets on the C's here on the end as well. So we're going to sleeve this in, and put gussets on the ends, weld those on. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out. We're going to take it over to my buddy's shop and put it on his axle jig and see how bent it is, see if it's already bent. If it's not bent, that's fine. We'll go ahead and put the sleeves in it, get them welded in, and then we'll weld on the C gussets, and then we'll put in the new ball joints. And hopefully these adjustable ball joints will work well. So when I'm taking parts off, I like to I hate finding bolts and I'm not sure where they go, so I just use a cardboard box, punch holes in with this, with one of these, and then I can slip the bolt in, label which bolts they are, and this is caliper bolts, obviously, right there, and passenger side, driver side, so that'll help me be more organized when it's time to go back together. And also I'll kind of go left to right here as I take my bolts off, and that way when I put it back together, I'll just go backwards, and then hopefully I won't get anything out of order and waste my time. Okay, thing I just want to document is where my lines run, just for my own education. I mean, when I reassemble it, I want to be able to see where my lines go and how these brackets go. So this bracket that goes underneath this ball joint stud here, or the ball joint bolt nut rather, I'm sorry, it's a ball joint nut, comes up high in the back and then drops down in the front, and this is what holds the wheel speed sensor on. So I'll have to get the caliper off here, get the rotor off, and get that wheel speed sensor out. All right, then we can attack the big stuff. Okay, this was by far the easiest I've ever removed an axle, and it was basically because I used these cam buckle straps, one on each side, to suspend the axle. So basically I used cam buckles to hold the axle up to the inside of the Jeep fender, and then I disconnected everything, and the axle just hung there. And then I was able to lower it slowly with the assistance of the jack, which I found out later I didn't really need to use because the axle is just not that heavy. You can just loosen the cam buckle strap and kind of let it slide down. And then I slid it down on top of these little Harbor Freight furniture dollies, and that allowed me to roll it around really easy. I'll show you on the installation later in the video of how I use this to put it back into place and hold it in perfect position so I could align it. It worked great. Okay, I'm gonna have to pressure wash it. It's pretty filthy. I don't want my buddy helping me work on this with something so filthy, so I'll get it pressure washed, plug the holes there, and on the axle tube there I'll stuff a rag. I'll put a cap over this thing, and we'll get it washed up and ready to service. Okay, so on a job my buddy did recently, he got axle sleeves for a Dana 30, and they were quarter wall here. And these are 3/16, these ones that I have. My axle shafts actually measure 1.34, and these measure 1.6 inside. So that's not a big, that's not a lot of room for tolerance. They do slide on easy, and you can see there's a little bit of room for play there. And maybe I'm happy with, I wouldn't want something so tight that it was, barely had any clearance, because there's still going to be some axle flex here and there, and maybe this is a good thing that it's only 3/16 and not quarter. I mean, obviously I wouldn't, the thicker the better for strength, and I was thinking I'm going to send these back and get 1/4 inch, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just stick with these, and 3/16 adds a lot of thickness to this axle housing as it is, so good. Now let's see if this will slide in here. Of course I haven't cleaned any of this, but okay, so that's a good fit. Okay. Let's check the other side. It's getting kind of tight there. Okay guys, here's my thoughts on, do you straighten an axle or you just buy a new one? And so, you know, my first TJ I bought, there's videos on my channel about that, but when I first bought it, it had a bent tube right here. The short end was bent. And so the front driver tire was literally leaning in like this. It was terrible. So I ordered a Dana 44 that had an ARB already in it. I think it was like $3,800, so it wasn't terrible, but that was $3,800. And it was not reinforced. It was just another, it was the exact same housing as the Dana 30 on the TJ that was bent. So the same C's, and in fact, when I got it, I even called the company and said, I thought this was a beefier axle. And they said, well, the housing and, you know, the C's, the inner C's and everything are all the same on the Dana 30 and Dana 44. And they said, you know, but the axle shafts are stronger. So I was like, well, it can bend just as easily. So even back then, I kind of figured that out. So the thinking now to me is, you know, should I get this axle straightened or should I just buy a new one if it's bent badly? If it can be straightened and sleeved, and we can put sleeves in it to reinforce it, and then put the gussets on the C's and weld those in and make it even stronger, even if that cost of straightening it and gusseting it and sleeving it is the same price as a new one, you're getting a better axle because it's stronger. If you buy a replacement axle because yours is bent, the new one's just going to bend just as easily. So I think this is the way to go. Why would I buy another axle that's the exact same thing when it's going to bend just as easily? So, because they're not making them any better. And, you know, just another example of this is one of my buddies that I work with. He has a Willys, you know, 2015 Willys model, and it has a Dana 30 in it. And so, you know, it was bent. In fact, the shop said, we have to put a new axle in it. And so they said, well, it's going to be $8,000, you know, but you're going to have, you know, the best axle. It's already beefed and reinforced, and it'll, you know, it won't bend on you, but it's going to cost you $8,000. And he was like, dang, that's a lot of money. And so I said, well, why don't you just go to my axle guy and talk to him and see if he can straighten it. And so he did. He got it straightened. He got it sleeved. He got it gusseted, and it's all straight now. And he says it drives really well now, and it feels really solid. And it didn't cost him, you know, $8,000. It wasn't even anywhere close to that. Okay, so now that we got the knuckles off, we got the ball joints out, we got the carrier out, I popped out the inner seals just with a rod from the outside. I just tapped them until they popped out on the inside. Let's just look at it now and see. I'm going to put a flashlight here and see what it looks like down the tubes. And, you know, I originally thought this was going to be really rusty and pitted, but it's really not that bad. There's more, kind of a little bit more rust here on the outside edge than inboard, and it looks pretty good. Now, of course, when we drill holes to weld in the axle sleeves, that's going to leave a lot of burrs. That's going to leave a lot of metal in here, so we got to be careful. When we do that, we're going to plug these two ends right here and right here, and of course, try to keep everything out of the carrier housing that we can. And in fact, I'll probably pack a rag in there on that side, and then we'll brush it out, you know, drill it, brush it out, we'll clean it, and then we'll pull the rag through this way to make sure we make a final sweep and make sure we get all the crud out. Okay, so just looking down there, you know, there's a little bit of rust right here. I don't feel any pitting at all, but we're going to use these things to clean it out. And I measured the axle diameter here, and it's 2 inches exactly on mine. And so I found this Porter Cable 2-inch wire wheel, and it's just got the little, you know, hex drive on it, and it's a perfect fit. Sorry, let me get out of the sun there. Wow. Look at that. So that's going to be great for getting rid of the rust. Also, this is my axle guy's recommendation, Forney flap wheel, and this is a 2-inch also. It says 2-inch right there, and here it is. And this has a round shaft, and so this is a good fit as well. So what I'm going to use this for is deburring the inside of the holes after I drill it. Okay. Now, I thought I had one of those long drill extension rods, you know, like 24 inches or so, that has the screws on the end that you can slide over this, tighten the screws down, and then chuck it up in your drill. But I'm in the process of moving, so I've packed it. And so what I'm going to do is just weld on a rod onto these, because these are going to be a one-use thing. I'm going to use them one time, and then I'm going to be done. Okay, so I just laid this inside the angle iron. I had to this is a little smaller diameter, so I had to shim it up to kind of match the middle of this rod that I had, but this is, 30 inches or so, so this will be plenty to run the length of the shaft, and then just kind of tack welded it around. And it's probably not perfectly symmetrical, probably doesn't run straight, but it doesn't have to. And so hopefully this will do the job. Okay, let's just see here. I think that's going to do it. And I'll be able to put pressure on one side or the other, just to make sure I get all the burrs off. Good. Okay, so getting the holes marked here where I want to drill my holes. And the Barnes instructions say minimum of 6 holes on the left side, on the short side, and a minimum of 8 holes on the long side. So the problem is, I want to put them 90 degrees all the way around to each other, but there's bracketry in the way, so I'm having to kind of work around that. So I've got a mark there, a couple marks in the back here, one there, one there. I can't really, I could probably get my welder in here. It's kind of a tight spot, but some of these others just are, can't really make them symmetrical. So I have 7 marked on the short side and I have 11 marked on the long side. So it's a little more than they recommend. Now on the Synergy kit, the Synergy instructions, they say drill 8 holes on this side and 16 holes on this side. That's a lot of holes. And maybe that's better as far as welding stability goes. In any event, I worried that, this instructions said to slide these in until the edge is 1/8 inch inside of the axle housing. And so my worry was, is it going to be long enough to reach through this thick part here? Because you definitely want it inside of here. You don't want your tubing ended up out here because that's one of the weak spots, right? So if we slide this in here and make it about 1/8. Oh, this slides in so easy, by the way, now that they're straight. So if you're sliding these in, you're not using the pound-in kit, but you're using the weld-in kit, and they don't slide in or you can't get them in, it is probably bent. So let's look inside here and see where it ends up. Okay, so that's just short, maybe 1/2 inch short of where the axle seal is going to hit. Okay, and so let's just see what it looks like out here. We're going to say that, this mark right here, that line, is basically about the same as 1/8 inside there. So we're going to set this tube here at the 1/8, about that mark, and you can see how far it's going inside there. So that's good. I feel confident in that it's going to give this part a lot of strength. And the same thing over here. Now this one, this long side, I could not slide in all the way because the axle housing was bent. And now look at it slide in. Now that my axle buddy straightened it. And it's a little snug right there, but we can get it in just by pushing on it. Okay, and let's look here and see what it looks like inside. And it's ending up about the same spot. So bearing surface, right? This is where the seal sits all the way to right there. And so that leaves a little bit of space right there for this axle tube, the axle sleeve. Just looking from the outside, if we use that same line right there as the 1/8 inside the axle housing and then come over here, there's plenty of tube inside this part right here. So good. Okay guys, let's do a little test here. I just am interested in how long it's going to take to drill each hole. So the recommendations in the instructions say drill a 1/4 inch pilot hole and then a 1/2 inch final hole. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got new titanium bits here in 1/4 and 1/2. And then my axle guy told me, try out this bit. And this is by Can Cut. And it's a step point bit. And it doesn't require a pilot hole. And it's 1/2 inch. And supposedly this will do the business. And it was about $30-something on Amazon. But if you buy a good cobalt 1/2 inch bit, that's going to be $20-something. So, with a regular point on it. So, and bits can be expensive. So, I thought, well, $34, that sounds like a lot. It's a little bit more than I probably would have spent on a cobalt bit, but if it saves me time because I don't have to drill a pilot hole, that would be good. Okay guys, so this step point bit did pretty well. I ended up drilling 18 holes total, so I drilled 17 holes with this, and pretty much back to back, and it did very well. I timed the first hole, that was 32 seconds. I timed the last hole, and it was 38 seconds. Okay, and of course that's not consistent. You know, I'm not Project Farm here. I don't have the weights tied to the drill and, you know, given perfect same pressure every time. So I'm sure there's some human variability there, but this little Waitley battery still has 2 bars after all those holes. So pretty impressive. Okay, good. So that did the business. I didn't have to switch to the other bits. And there they are. Here's the holes. And it's kind of cool looking down inside. You can see all the little holes and all the little light coming through. Okay, we got a lot of the metal chips up. Okay, we'll get the shavings blown out here. Okay. We'll stuff that just about to where the seal hits. Okay, now we can start cleaning up the ends. And let's just look down here. This might not come out well on the camera, but there are some burrs on the inside. There's still some metal shavings in the bottom, so we definitely want to get those cleaned out. All right, got it cleaned as best I could. That little band file sander is awesome. It really gets in places the regular flat disc can't, or the grinding disc. So I went ahead and cleaned all the mill scale off this all the way around the edges as well. So it looks good. What we're going to do, I'm probably not going to video this, but I'm going to tack it here, here, here on the front, and here on the front. That'll just keep it from moving up or down or trying to move on me. And then I'll probably tack it here and here, then I'll go ahead and get it burned in. I'm going to probably just make a pass, you know, here, make a pass here, pass here, and then go work on the other side, let this cool. Then I'm going to come back and make a few more passes, just not going to make a bunch. I don't want to warp this. And I've warped 1/2-inch steel welding on it. And one of my buddies was telling me he warped 1-inch steel welding on it. And so I'm just going to be careful here. Take my time, let it cool in between. So show you what I did real quick. I tacked it there, and also here in the front. But then I decided I need to tack it in some other places just to make sure it doesn't move. So this will get a little bit more stability, and also here and right there. Okay, now I can start burning little pieces of it. Okay, got a little carried away. I didn't video. Basically, got the welding all done. Got the upper C gusset welded in all across the back here and the sides. Same thing with the bottom C gusset. It's right here, and looks pretty good. And it's all painted up. Also, the welds around here. I used a much lighter setting here, and of course it's going to vary with the different MIG welders, but there's no intrusion inside the bore here of the sleeve. And just looking down, it looks nice and straight. I'm super happy. So okay. All right, now we're going to get the ball joints in, and I'm using the Synergy adjustable ball joints and rebuildable ball joints, and so I'm excited about that. Hopefully they'll last, and that'll be a separate video, so look for that. Okay, so it worked really well rolling this axle around on these little small Harbor Freight furniture dollies. I'm suspending it with dirt bike straps, and just hooked it around right here. And then up here, I'm hooking it inside this metal piece right here. And that seems to work well. Try to hook it high so that the weight of the back of the carrier or the differential housing doesn't try to rotate it too much. It'll still rotate some as you suspend it, but suspending it as high here rather than trying to grab it like here or around here or something like that, which would work. But the higher you grab it, the less likely it's going to try to turn. raise it up about to where the shock bolts can go right through. This one needs to come up a little bit higher, as you can see, so we'll raise it up to about that point, and then our control arm should be able to line up pretty well.